Some interesting issues today. One that I'm concerned about, and I didn't ask, but the accessibility of the availability, accessibility of body cam data. And Representative Cornish has a bill that would totally restrict that. Is that correct?
Well, I haven't read it yet. I just found out here today about Cornish's proposed bill. I think it's going to be up on the website tomorrow, so I'll be able to read it then.
Okay, what's your position on the availability of body cam?
Anything that's available to a prosecutor should be available to a defense lawyer because they're both building a case.
What about the public?
And I'm happy to have the public have access. I'm concerned about the rights of people who have HIPAA-related privacy concerns in medical situations.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about kids having their pictures online because potentially if it's a public piece of data, it's going to be online someplace. I worry about maybe a medical situation where the paramedics and the police show up and they're inside someone's home. And I would find it intrusive to have images of the inside of my home available for posting on the internet. So it's a conundrum, and that's why we're all working on it together to try to find a solution. Because the idea that it should be public data is fundamental to some concepts of liberty. But then I worry about the kids, the sick people, my home in the event a police officer shows up.
Well, there have been cases of recently of police turning off the body cams.
Right.
And what is the position now on the ownership of the data? Is that reasonably uniform around the country or the state?
I don't believe it is. This is a very quickly evolving area. So that some police departments farm the entire process out to a vendor, and they could have a contract different for every one of the hundreds of police and sheriff's departments in Minnesota. I think there are 1,300 law enforcement agencies in Minnesota between county, state, and city and federal. They could all have a different contract that creates a different ownership scenario for the data.
Is there any plan for a central repository of that data?
There's a plan for a central repository of data disclosed by prosecutors to public defenders in the context of a criminal case, where the data becomes a part of the client's file and is therefore under the confidentiality rules that affect lawyers, becomes a confidential part of a file. So,
but not data that is not involved in a trial.
Exactly, because it's not disclosed to defense. The only thing that we see is those pieces of data that are going to be used in a prosecution.
You raised the issue of the quantity of data.
It's very expensive. It's very expensive for us to store and to back up and to handle, and also to convert, because much of it is very high definition video that won't be available over a courtroom Wi-Fi so that a lawyer can use her iPad or her Surface tablet to show it to her client at pretrial so the client can know about the evidence that the state has against him.
Here's one that wasn't mentioned today.
A GoPro, yeah.
And as a videographer, I'm well aware of the volume of data that can be
We're going to convert it all to
generated.
MP4 streaming video so that lawyers can use it more easily over Wi-Fi.
Well,
and
what's
with
your ideal on
pads.
on body cam data? Should that be just a public repository that anyone can take a look at, or court-controlled, or defense attorney-controlled?
Well, that's not going to happen. But I can't imagine anyone else is going to be looking at a central repository. We are the single and only agency that does statewide criminal justice business. Everything else is broken down by city attorneys and county attorneys and sheriffs and police and federal authorities. So they all have their own repository. It's like a giant funnel that comes down to one spot, and that is public defense. Everyone else is broken up into a
Do you
whole
see
bunch
public
of different
defense
jurisdictions.
as a central repository for a state public defender for a lot of the collected data?
Well,
body cam is only part of it. Dash cam and
If you think about how your doctor's business has changed over the last 10 years, so that when she talks to you about your health circumstances, not looking at a paper file anymore. She's looking at an electronic medical record. We're building for public defense an electronic record that they can use in a very similar way.
Are you going to get it funded?
So that well, that's always a question, but the first step has been funded, and that is the ability to take in electronic data, so that in about a year, we'll be able to create that electronic defense
When
record.
was that funded?
We funded it out of just extra money in our budget so far. We haven't gotten a specific legislative donation of money for it. We
Okay.
wouldn't say no to that.
Well, are you optimistic about, as a defense attorney, is this a positive move, collecting all this data, visual data?
I think it protects people from the sort of spontaneous, adrenaline-fired reactions of people who are in conflict, police officers who get mad. We've had obviously a lot of examples across the country of people being hurt by police officers who are reacting in that sort of spontaneous way. In those scenarios, I think it will be helpful. I'm a little concerned after some of the recent incidents where there has been video and the prosecution or the attempt to make police officers accountable for that behavior hasn't really followed through. There's been great video since Rodney King. With finer and finer resolution showing misbehavior of police officers, and prosecution hasn't followed. So that makes me a little bit skeptical.